What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast Live Edition. It is Wednesday. We got your live questions in the chat on YouTube, also on Twitter. Appreciate you guys joining us. This is powered, as always, by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Going to start off with the bank. Tell you the latest that I am hearing regarding high school recruiting, regarding the players that are on campus now. We got the story on CanesInSight.com for free, the forums. You could read all of there, but we'll go over it here on the podcast. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel. And we'll get your questions, man. First, want to talk about my friends at Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. They don't get paid until you get paid. All right, so Pete, jump in here. While I roll through the bank, posted on the CanesInsight.com for free article. If you guys aren't on there, sign up. 6.9 million posts and counting, and I post the bank once I get info on the team, on the recruiting, and I try to make it as comprehensive as I can. And we're usually first on stuff. One player that jumps to mind that we talked about this week, OJ Frederic. This is the defensive back from St. Thomas, the corner who signed with the Miami Hurricanes. We were the first people to put him on anybody's radar. Ended up committing, signing. Now he is on campus, and I am told he is impressing guys better than they thought. Bigger, I don't know better than they thought, but better than I thought, at least based on the feedback I'm getting. Big, athletic, fast. Some people think he may play as a true freshman. He was considered a raw project. You see the highlights at St. Thomas. The rare St. Thomas player to go both ways. Usually St. Thomas, they got plenty of receivers. They got plenty of corners. They don't need guys to go both ways. Frederic returning kicks, catching the ball, playing corner with good size, a 6'1"-ish. So he's someone who's got a lot of talent. And I think Miami is very happy with what they're seeing from him. Also, what they're seeing from Ryan Mack, his teammate, was described as a high IQ player. But Frederic is one in particular that's catching my attention based on the feedback I'm getting. Pete, what do you see when you look at these highlights?
And returning kicks too, also, which is like, at Aquinas, usually these guys are specialized to their position. And one of the reasons they show up to college so ready, I think that obviously the coaching and the program there is so great. But to get a guy here who, again, I don't think many fans expected him to be factored into this team this season, right? We talk about the portal work and the guys that they've picked up, and this was the position, I think, that, or one of the couple positions that you could say maybe they could have added one more guy there. So again, it's early, right? This is still just workouts, right? But good early returns there.
Yeah, and so Ryan Mack, another one, his teammate, with the early returns. Again, it's early, but you want to see size and speed translate. You want to see demeanor. You want to see conditioning. I've seen Lemons, and I hear right at workouts, we're a little worried about this one. He's banged up, or he's out of shape, or he doesn't look as big and fast as we thought he was. These are good early returns. And the overall feedback is that the 24 class is really focused and mature. They think from a competitive character standpoint, just the football character of these kids, that, where they arrived, it was here. 22 class, maybe a slight improvement, but pretty much same way because it was so fast. 23, big improvement, and now 24, an even bigger improvement in terms of the overall competitive makeup of the class. I'm hearing Booker Pickett, Elias Rudolph, two long defensive ends with a lot of speed that showed up on campus for summer. Both run like deer. I know they're already happy with Lightfoot and Cole McConaughey, who had great springs. Could be a home run position there. Justin Scott doing his thing. Armando Blunt starting to grow into a D tackle. Artavius Jones, a little nicked up, but impressing. Those are just some of the names I've heard about in workouts. Recruiting wise, Miami, if you go ahead and pull up the bank, which I read, Pete, go ahead and pull up the post while you're there. Elijah Griffin, Miami made a very nice move with him, the number one defensive lineman in the country from Savannah, Georgia. I'm told Miami really is putting their best foot forward with him, and they were putting the foot on the gas to land this elite player, and they think they got a great chance there. You see the bank, again, for free on Canes Insight. Vernell Brown on campus now, the wide receiver from Orlando, top of the board type prospect. He is having a very good visit. Jamie French arrived later because of the terrible weather we have down here. But obviously Miami is going to be recruiting him hard. Walter Mathis, who we talked about yesterday, the crystal ball from Anna Adams, Southeast recruiting writer, projecting Walter Mathis to the Hurricanes. I did some homework on that. think that's real. Miami has real momentum with him. Still needs to visit Auburn, still needs to visit LSU, but Miami's a major player with Walter Mathis, Savannah, Georgia, a teammate and close friend, or sorry, not a teammate, but a close friend and fellow Savannah native, Elijah Griffin, defensive tackle I just mentioned. Also Herbert Scroggins, a defensive end that Miami is going to be that is recruiting hard, is going to have on campus here in a week or so. He's also a Savannah native. So 3 major defensive line targets from Savannah, Georgia. Two have already visited, Walter Mathis and Elijah Griffin. Major move with Elijah Griffin. Walter Mathis, maybe, positive momentum towards a commit if he gets through these visits. And then Herbert Scroggins, defensive end, who Miami absolutely loves. He'll be visiting in the future. So some Savannah names to keep your eye on. Cortez Smith, Miami, if they can survive that Georgia visit, they think they got a great shot at him. They consider him one of the top interior offensive linemen in the country. They love to get 2 of 3 when it comes to him. SJ Alafatuli out of Las Vegas, and then Isaac Souls out of the Louisville area. They love to get 2 out of those 3 guys. The latter 2 are visiting, Souls this weekend. I think Fatuli next weekend. Cortez Smith just visited. So they're working those guys.
See, I was about to give you credit and say you're getting good with the poly names, but you doubled back there and it wasn't so smooth. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's we're working on it. Jaden Perlotti, linebacker from Buford. Miami thought he rescheduled his visit last week to this week. Miami thought that was fine. They were getting good feedback from him, but looks like he's probably not going to make it. He's going to stick with Georgia, or Miami's losing traction in that recruiting. They thought they were in good shape as of last week, but what they were hearing doesn't seem to be what is in fact what it is. So we'll see how that one develops. Dalen Upshaw, receiver who was on campus last week from Phoenix City, Alabama, major priority. Miami really liked what they saw from him on the visit. He's a high priority. Name I mentioned before, Gavin Nix, linebacker from IMG. Great visit. Everybody loved him. He was around Miami legends who interacted with him and loved him. Everybody thinks this guy's a leader. Everybody thinks he's a great player. He's a top 100 player. Great chance he's a Miami Hurricane. Put him on your list of guys to watch. Also on that list, I would put Derry Norris, a defensive tackle from Spruce Creek. Athletic defensive tackle, had played edge, had played, I think, some offense as well earlier in his career. Really athletic guy. He's grown an inch since the last time Miami measured him. So going in the right direction size-wise. They feel good about the frame. They love the athleticism. Derry Norris is another one to watch on the commit list. So that's some clip notes on the bank. There's more there. You can check it out on CanesInsight.com. Again, for free. Sign up. Talk on the boards about it. 6.9 million posts and counting. So let's get to the chat, man. We got some questions here.
Yeah, indeed. Just real quick, going back to your comment on the 2024 class being ready from a character standpoint and being very mature and about ball. Those are the types of guys in today's day and age of college football that obviously you want to bring in. But like, if you're not showing pretty early on, I'm not saying you have to be the guy. I'm not saying you have to be a major contributor right away. But if you're not showing that you're taking the steps and you have the right mental makeup to be a guy within a year and a half, 2 years, then they're probably going to try to move on from you. And this is not a Miami thing. This is a college football thing. So I think that is a very important point that you made there. So let's get into some of these comments. Brandon, good morning. 904 Hurricane says 80 days till the Canes invade the swamp. Port Knox, good morning. Appreciate the support. Brandon Brock here with a question asking about Frankie Tinalau, asking if we're hearing anything about him. And D, I know he was injured for most of spring. So if you want to, kind of give an update there.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for the support. Tinalau, I think he had some academic stuff he had to work out just with his credits. Also had a back injury, which is a tough one you want to be careful with. Missed most of spring. He was, taking mental reps, but he wasn't full participant. But I did see him practice at times, full contact. They're easing him back slow. Based on what I saw, I would expect him to have a full summer and then be a full participant in August camp. So excited to see what he can do. He's an older player. And he's redshirting, so he's going to be very old, which is good on offensive line. He's going to have some maturity physically and otherwise. So we'll see how he develops. But he's young in terms of eligibility. So if he sticks with the process, I'm excited about what he can become. Obviously, the back injury was a setback, but he's healthy now and has learned a lot, I'm sure, even sitting on the sidelines.
Guys, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have Canes Insight daily every day, and we do this live show once a week. Ulysses Perez, our boy, Closure Investigative Agency. If you guys need a private investigator, go check him out. And he said, good morning, boys. Love you. Out of all of the receivers Miami's after, which two does Miami have the most traction with?
Yeah, shout out CIA. Here's one thing I'll say about the receivers. I think Miami's looking at it like this. Signing day's pushed back this year. It's like by December 26th. It's like by Christmas. So the season is going to be played by the time that day comes. Hopefully Miami's in the playoff. But either way, there's going to be a lot of football played. Miami's view is they're going to be filling the air with footballs with Cam Ward and these receivers, including got 3 guys that are gone, which is Restrepo, George, and Sammy Brown. Most likely those guys, barring some bad injury, those guys are gone next year. So Miami thinks they're going to be showcasing a dynamic passing game with outgoing receivers, which if you're recruiting high school receivers, what do you want to show? Dynamic passing game, outgoing receivers, because you step right in and play, right? So Miami thinks they're going to have a very good passing game that will attract the top caliber receivers, and that will give them more traction than anything they're doing now. With that said, Vernell Brown is on a visit now. I heard the visit's going great. They absolutely love him. Obviously, they take a commitment from him tomorrow, but if he commits somewhere else, they're going to keep recruiting him for the reasons I just said. Tyler Williams visited last week, had a great visit, or 2 weeks ago, had a great visit. Dalen Upshaw visited last week. They liked him. Those are just some names that have been on campus. Miami has traction with. Josh Moore, Miami's moving up on that list. With Florida State and Florida, they love him. Those are just the names that have visited. So those are the ones they had traction with. But with receiver, they're going to aim high. Think about what they could do if they have a good season. That's how they're looking at it.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up this video real quick. That was going viral yesterday. Speaking of Vernell Brown, what are your thoughts on Coach Beard's backflip here? He didn't stick the landing, but I mean, you got to give him credit.
Yeah, man, he's like my age. I think he's a little older than me, so you got to definitely give him credit. I'd be worried about busting my head. He got up there. So, and he's long too. He's not as short as Vernell Brown. He's like 6'1", 6'2". So, Plantation High, one of the highest rated receivers coming out. I think he set records with quarterback Ryan Schneider, if I recall correctly. Went to UCF. They were deadly at Plantation. So Kevin Beard could play ball. And Vernell Brown, man, look at him. You see how springy he is. He looks the part. He's a shorter guy, but I saw him in person at the overtime finals in Tampa. Strong, super smart, kind of had people gravitating towards him on top of the fact that he made a lot of plays. Alpha dog. He's one you want. He's a top of the board type prospect and having a good time in Miami from what I'm told.
Canes Cats Heat 305 in here. Appreciate the support, big dog. Brandon wants to know, is Zion Nelson out there with the team?
I haven't seen workouts, but I assume he is. He was out there in spring, and we reported exclusively for Canes Connection members at the time. Now, I'll let the cat out of the bag here a month or so later, 2 months later. He had a couple practices, Zion Nelson, where he did practice in full. He did full contact one-on-ones. He did full contact team drills. He looked okay. So we'll see where he is. He's obviously still with the team. He hasn't been medical retired or anything yet. So everybody hopes that he can participate because he's got a lot of talent. So I think he's out there. I haven't heard anything otherwise. He was out there all spring.
Carlos Cruz, kind of piggybacking off the last question here, which you sort of answered. What's the wide receiver board looking like? Still no one committed, which, again, you said they're kind of going to be patient there. Yeah,
they think they're going to produce on offense. They're going to have the ability to recruit the best receivers in the country. So they're making relationships with what they consider the best receivers in the country right now. So you see their board, you know what it looks like. These are the guys they like, and they're going to recruit those guys until the clock strikes zero. And I think the season's going to have a big role, whether they're committed somewhere else or not.
Obligatory Chase Smith post. Any positive news about his summer? I mean, I saw him at practice, and I know you talk to your people as well, but when I was there for the media side of things, he looked huge. And that was always like the big thing with him, right? Obviously outside of the injuries and coming back healthy from that. But I think he should be a beast on special teams for sure. And then, work himself into the mix there at linebacker. But if he's healthy, he's got the tools.
Yeah, he played all spring, looked good, had moments. Never really cracked the first team, but he was there with the second team, looked big. I think special teams with him is his bread and butter. He's a great special teams player. We'll see in terms of the linebacker. It's a deep room, but the guy's got talent, and I could see him having a good game. Maybe someone gets hurt, he jumps in there, does well, and never leaves the lineup. So we'll see. But he's there. He's in the mix.
Port Knox said, haven't heard the name Dylan Day in a while. How's he progressing?
He was having a nice spring, made some plays, had some moments where he did some nice things. He was playing kind of all over the place, very versatile piece. He hurt his hamstring during a one-on-one. He just pulled up lame. I think that knocked him out the rest of spring, but it's nothing that I understand is going to be too bad as far as like, his freshman year. So we'll see, but he was on the right track. Injury set him back. I'm not sure he's going to factor in year one, but he could because he's versatile. So we'll see what kind of summer he has and how he looks in camp.
Yeah, I was there that day that he got injured, and it was like a non-contact thing, so people were concerned at first. But like you said, I don't think it's anything to worry about moving forward. 904 Hurricane says, how much do you think Shamar Kirk will factor in this year? I mean, look, I give him credit. All reports were that he had a really good, productive spring. Obviously, he's not one of the first three guys, but as a JUCO guy, he could have easily packed it up and said, I got to go somewhere else right now where I'm going to be the main guy, or going to get way more targets of this. And he's stuck around. So obviously, I think there's some sort of plan for him to be utilized in this offense.
Yeah, he made a lot of plays in team drills and like in scrimmages. When the lights came on, obviously there's not a game. This is a game-like setting in practice, but that's where he was the best. Better than one-on-ones was the games. So in the spring game, he made a big play as well. Did that in scrimmages, did that in team drills. So he's someone that a lot of people speculated might be on the way out. He wasn't. He stuck with it. So he could have potentially a role, but that's a deep room. You add Sam Brown, you got Isaiah Horton, you got Jacoby George, Xavier Estrepo, JoJo Trader, Nye Carr had great springs, and then Robbie Washington and Ray Joseph. Those guys are dynamic with the ball in their hands, kind of playing that Rashard Smith running back receiver role. So a lot of guys to feed. He is one of them, but he can't do more than what he's doing as far as performing in team drills. So let's see what he does in summer.
Hassan Rashid says, what's the best trait for a defensive lineman to have? What's the best skill? I mean, man, when I was really in the agent side heavily, the phrase heavy hands really came up a lot. Listen, the guys that are top guys they're all explosive. They all have size, right? The twitchiness is almost a prerequisite at this level, at this big time level. I think heavy hands is something that not everyone has. You can be big, you can be strong, but it's something about having pop in those hands, especially once they learn how to really use their leverage and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say power, kind of fitting off what you said, which is when you say power, it's not necessarily weight room strength. Power to me is the ability to generate knockback through explosive movements, right? So it's going to be explosiveness, it's going to be hands, it's going to be lower body strength, could be upper body strength as well. Power. Ruben Bain, power was his absolute, he had a lot of attributes, but power, man, you saw him against Clemson when he knocked that guy back. That is power at its finest. I think some guys that are big obviously have power. A guy like Marquise Lightfoot is not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got some pop to him, more than you would think for being such a light guy. So I think power is a big one. It really depends on the position. D tackle, to me, you just need those physical traits more than anything. That's a position that to me is probably the most traits-based position in football, along with cornerback. Just need to have the size, the athletic ability, and hopefully some toughness. And you're going to be a hot commodity just because of the scarcity at that particular position. The frames, John Ford, people thought he sucked, and the guy gets drafted, right? Just because those traits are so rare. Defensive end, I would say, like the hands, the power, motor's obviously a huge one. All the top defensive ends have that motor. Sounds cliche, but look at the guys. Look at Trey Hendrickson in the NFL. That's what plays. I would say the ability to bend around the corner, but just the ability to move and keep offensive tackles off balance. Bend is part of that, but it's not just bending around the corner. It could be the way you bend into the offensive tackle to keep him off balance. Guy that can show a lot of that in spring was Cole McConaughey. He always had offensive tackles, the backup offensive tackles off balance, because even if he's not bending around them, he's bending into them in a way that they're not comfortable with and gets them off balance. He can go inside also if they overset. So he had some fluidity to his game to combine with the motor and the size that he had that made him very tough to deal with. So defensive end and defensive tackle, different skill sets. Again, defensive tackle, I think traits, number one, because it's such a scarce position, size, athleticism, hopefully some toughness so they're not complete duds, but they get away with more than other people just because of that need for traits. And you definitely want the motor and you definitely want that fluidity, I think. And then for both positions, power.
New King God says, is comparing CJ Clark to Daryl Jackson fair? Me personally, I don't know if that's fair just because I think they're completely different players. CJ Clark's more of a penetrator, get upfield using quickness. Daryl Jackson, more of a space eater, can take up multiple blocks at once. I think NFL-wise, obviously scheme will dictate that. But I had scouts, not to get too much in Florida State, but I had scouts telling me last year, even though he didn't play, he was considering coming out and could have been a 3rd, 4th round pick, Daryl Jackson, just because they'd go to practice and he'd be dominating practice, right? And there's questions and concerns about all the transfers that he's had. But I think Clark could obviously have a great year and probably be like a mid-round pick, but I think Jackson just has a little more tools to work with at this stage.
Yeah, Jackson's just bigger, taller, he's tall and big. Clark is more your traditional, not short. He's not like Marley Cook. He has decent height, but really he's not 6'5", 6'4", what Jackson is. He's closer to the lower to the ground, stout guy. Jackson, really big. He's like a Frankenstein monster, man. He's big and strong and powerful. So I would agree with Pete. Jackson has more tools. Clark probably higher floor.
Next one here from Albert Perez Abreu. Assuming the top 2 corners are Porter and Brown, are the next 2 Hill and Richards, or could we see younger guys factor in like Mack and Frederick?
Throw Robert Stafford into that mix as well. But yeah, I think right now you look at the top 4 corners with experience. It's going to be Porter. It's going to be Damari Brown. Although he has the least experience, he's probably the most talented. Did play last year. Deani Hill, who played a lot last year, starting games for Marshall. And then Jadis Richard, who started against Florida State, started games at Vanderbilt before he transferred to Miami, has a lot of experience there. So those 4, from an experience standpoint, are the top 4. But yeah, you could see a Frederick or a Mack factor in if they make a big jump. You wish they were here in spring, but they're coming from St. Thomas. They're going to be more prepared than most. Robert Stafford, somebody who's fighting to play, size with him, physicality, just overall experience, but he has some athletic tools. So those are some names that could factor in this season at corner.
904 Hurricane says, I have heard reports that Pickett is flirting with Georgia. Concern level.
If Miami wins, I think DJ Pickett is a Cane. Too many family ties. He could walk right in and jump right to the top of the depth chart at corner. I think he knows that. They're recruiting him hard. That to me seems like, I don't see Miami having a good season and DJ Pickett not being a Cane. Miami flops, anybody's game.
Ulysses Perez, where are we at with numbers? Any more player exits?
Nothing I heard imminent. I think we're fine. I think the last number I heard for the high school recruiting class is look for 20 kids. I know they want to leave room for the portal because the portal's been so good the last couple of years. So I think 20 kids from high school, give or take a couple.
New King God, another one here from him. What's stopping? He says Emmy Williams. I guess he's Markeith Williams. Yep. Yeah, from starting. I feel he would cover space and players better than Jaden Harris. I even think Williams leads the team in picks this year. It's funny because I made an observation in a couple practices I went to that Markeith Williams looked really smooth. Again, individual work, but smooth hips. He has the length. I think he could be a really good free safety, a coverage guy back there. I think it's the physicality that's really holding him back there, and it just getting that good weight on. He's put weight on, but to be able to consistently bring it down after down, I think they probably trust Jaden Harris there a little bit more right now. Yeah,
I think really with Markeith, some people think he can play corner with how athletic he is, to the point you made, Pete. Good spring for Markeith. Looks like he's going to be a role player at minimum. Of course, he can start. He's right there. I mean, there's a limited amount of safeties, and he's right there in the mix to start. I would say he's more of a Mish Powell backup than a Jaden Harris backup because he's more similar to Mish Powell in terms of his game. Physicality would be a question with him, the ability to take down these big ball carriers in the open field. He's a little light, plus I don't know if he's overly physical to begin with. Consistency. He's gotten more consistent. That's one of the things we saw in spring. He was one of those guys that from a young age, kind of up and down, now you're seeing more consistency with him, which has allowed him to really solidify his spot in the rotation. If you compare him to Jaden Harris, I would say Markeith is the more natural ball hawk. He played safety in high school, had a ton of picks. So he had more experience at safety than Jaden Harris. Jaden Harris is just an old, they're really not older, the same age, but physically more mature player. And I think just a more trustworthy player at this stage of the game. You know what he's going to do? He's fast. He's just as fast as Markeith. Not as smooth from the defensive back stuff, probably, in terms of just moving around, playing the ball, flipping his hips. I'd say Markeith is smoother, more natural than Jaden. Jaden's bigger, more physical, probably a little faster, and I just think more trustworthy and consistent at this point. But Markeith Williams is in the mix.
Javier said, "Damn, D-Money, you quit your day job?" ?
We work all the time. We got a lot of work, a lot of different things I'm doing all throughout the day. So we're working right now.
Brian Taylor says, "What does our two deep look like at corner and safety?"
I think we just kind of went over the names. Corner, you heard it. Safety, I would say Mish Powell and Jaden Harris are your top two. Then Markeith Williams, probably Zaquan Patterson are your next two. Maybe a Jadis Richard plays safety. That could happen as well. You could see some movement on the names I just listed, but I'd say that's probably your two deep right now as we go into the summer workouts.
30 Rack Shoddy. Odds of Manny Diaz out coaching Mario when we play. Manny's going to come hard.
We'll see. I mean, look, Manny Diaz as a head coach didn't set the world on fire. You know, I mean, we saw what he looked like as a head coach. To me, I think, you know, the results as a head coach with Manny speak for himself. The roster, I did post comparing the roster that Manny left to what Mario's done in other places, you know, not even close. So, you know, to me, I think I understand why people are down right now. Middle Tennessee, the first year, poor record. Georgia Tech last year. These are major, you know, alarming events, and the record hasn't spoken for itself, or has spoken for itself in a negative way. But what I would say is this: people underestimate and people forget what Cristobal did at some of his other stops. Cristobal has been here before. He took FIU to the highest point of their program ever, starting from the absolute bottom with Bowflex machines in the gym to conference championships, bowl games, and they've never been back since. They've really gone downhill. The AD that got rid of him is gone. Cristobal really was the best coach, if you're being objective, in FIU history. Then goes to the Power 5 level at Oregon, wins 2 conference championships, right? Appears in the conference championship 3 times. And you look at some of these numbers, you know, just pulling it up here. Cristobal's only one of 9 active FBS head coaches to have won multiple Power 5 titles. One of only 2 coaches to have won 2 titles in fewer than 6 years, the other one being Ryan Day, who inherited a monster. Remember, Oregon was not cooking when Cristobal took over. He's only one of the 6 coaches with an FBS championship game appearance rate of 50% or better, meaning he's 6 seasons as a head coach, 3 title game appearances. Again, people forget this because some of the, you know, obstacles and some of the setbacks in these first couple of years in Miami. But this guy has a record. He's been there before. It's like University of Miami as a program. They've been to the top before, they can be there again. Cristobal has been to the championship game multiple times. I think he can be there again. I expect him to be in the ACC championship game this year based on his track record, based on what the roster looks like. And we've gone over it a million times. It is light years from what Manny Diaz left. And if we play Duke, I love our chances, man, to steamroll them. That's not really what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking more about Clemson, Florida State, and then teams in the playoff, because that is the weight class that Cristobal has been in the past and obviously hopes to be there again.
Ulysses Perez says, does DN Pickett have a chance to crack the rotation? I feel like people have forgotten about him.
I mentioned him on the bank. He came in with Elias Rudolph, long, fast, running like a deer. They think they hit a home run with that edge group between those 2 guys that just got here, Pickett and Rudolph. Long, fast, highly productive edge rushers. Cole McConaughey was a bigger rusher, but had a really, really nice spring start of the spring game. Marquise Lightfoot, the 5-star, flashed all spring, played great in the spring game. Probably was one of the best players in the spring game. Fast, physical, plays hard. Lightfoot just putting on weight. McConaughey already pretty big and a high motor guy. And then these 2 that you mentioned, Pickett and Elias Rudolph, speedsters with sack production. Really nice group at edge. Home run potentially at that particular position.
Javier said, this one's for Pete. Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale, or Neymar, Suarez, or Messi? I'm a Madrid fan, so I go BBC over MSN. And listen, D, I'm going to take this chance to promote our other thing we got going on, Group Chat Sports. Go like this page right here if you guys are into soccer. We got Euros and we have Copa America this summer. Group Chat Sports, giving picks, giving takes on soccer as well. So go like this page right here. Would really appreciate that.
Yeah, and you've had some big weekends, right? Pick-wise.
Yeah. We had a big weekend, Champions League weekend. And then before that, last weekend of Premier League. So
what kind of numbers are we talking about? Those high percentages.
Yeah, we did a clean sweep on Champions League weekend. So if you guys are looking for picks this summer for soccer, I know a lot of you guys are maybe mildly interested in it, but just don't know enough to get some skin in the game. Follow our picks, man. We're doing well. Sean Sanders says, I have a question in regards to Cortez Mills. I'm not sure, but I heard something about the staff not wanting to take his commit. Is it over in regards to us and Cortez Mills?
I spoke to somebody about that specifically yesterday. Not true. That is a false report that we did not take Cortez Mills' commitment. False. Directly refuted in strong terms. I do think Clemson's probably the team to watch there. Miami's on other targets. There's a lot of guys kind of in the similar category as far as receivers. It's a very strong year in the state. Cortez Mills, great player. I saw him this weekend at overtime 7. So good player. You probably head to Clemson as of now. Miami did not turn down his commit. That's a false report.
Appreciate the 800 plus who are on the show right now, watching us live. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the CanesInSight channel. And if you're not on CanesInsight.com, completely free. You guys will love the message boards, the forums, the discussion. Completely free. Once again, like I said. And questions like this, Devin Air asking about Chase Smith. We answered that earlier in the show. So if you guys are just joining on now, then remember to go back. The full replay will be available as soon as we wrap this up. But like you said before, Chase Smith, good spring, probably with that second team right now, but should be a factor in terms of special teams. The size is there. As long as he's healthy, should be a factor.
Yep. That room's improved tremendously. And he's one of the guys. Special teams, for sure, he'll be a big factor.
The Honey Badger says, heck yeah, a dude named D-Money got to be a hustler.
You got to work, man. You got to work in this world. I got 3 kids, so got to keep them fed. They eat a lot.
30 Rack Shouty, D-Money, Psycho Sid, most underrated wrestler.
Look-wise, promo-wise, very good. Intensity. He just didn't want it. He wanted to play softball all the time, so he'd disappear. He never really had that sustained run, but definitely a main event guy. He'd walk. You couldn't put him in the mid card, right? He had to be in the main event just based on the size, based on the intensity. But yeah, he was good, man. Psycho Sid Justice. When I started watching 91, 92, I remember I hadn't seen him in WCW. So Sid Justice was my first experience with Sid. Always been a main event guy.
And now your favorite wrestler is Sexy Red, right?
She did a nice job out there. Shout out to Lolo Vice, also former FRM client. Or she's still an FRM.
Yeah. FRM and Miami girl, yep.
Miami girl, Our Lady of Lourdes Academy, now doing it on NXT. She looks like a future star. I'm buying stock in Lola Vice there.
Brandon says, baseball question, any names that we're involved with right now? I know, D, you're going to be recording a show this afternoon with Javi Salas.
Yeah, we'll be recording a show exactly on baseball. I think, yes, there are a lot of names we're involved in. What I'm told is they want to operate quietly because of the nature of the portal. It can get, they want to be able to move without a lot of attention. So I'm keeping some of these names discreet, but yes, we're involved in names. Want to land some starting pitchers, want to land some bats, obviously need to protect Cuvée in the lineup. Left-handed bats would be a nice thing to add. You did add Marsh from Penn State, who's left-handed, but probably a higher caliber left-handed bat would be a priority.
A la Madrid, Brandon, y nada más. Biggest club in the world. 904 Hurricane says, looking at schedules, more likely Miami plays FSU a second time in the ACC championship rather than Clemson because of the Tigers schedule. Unless Louisville sneaks back in, Clemson opens with Georgia. And we'll be doing, I know we're going to do a show soon, kind of taking a look at the ACC as a whole and contenders for the conference. But what's your take on this comment?
It's hard to say. I heard Louisville, there's a lot of buzz on their starting quarterback, Tyler Shuck, who I think was originally a Cristobal signing at Oregon.
Yeah,
right?
He was at Texas Tech. I remember that name.
He's bounced around a lot. He's had NFL kind of fringe interest because of his size and arm. Louisville thinks they'll put it together there. They have a very good offensive coordinator, as we saw last year. He really tore apart Guidry, one of the best in the country, Brahm. So I can see Louisville being better than people think. We did take their best linebacker, which is a nice thing, to the Miami Hurricanes with Jalen Alderman. So we'll see. The ACC is hard to predict, man. Once you think you have a read on it, some team surprises you.
Javier says expectations for Sam Brown this season. I'm sky high on him. Obviously, we're big fans of Xavier Restrepo, and Jacoby George had an awesome year last year as well. I just think Sam Brown gives you a different gear, and big plays is kind of the phrase I'm thinking about with him.
Yeah. So Sam Brown, I think he'd be one of the group. I don't think he's going to be the number one, kind of like they're just constantly feeding him. He's the guy. I just don't get that sense of his skill set as far as the polish. Usually that number one guy is extremely polished. He's getting open. The quarterback trusts him. I think Restrepo is going to really be still the top guy in terms of who Cam Ward looks for when he's in trouble. Jacoby George will be in that mix. Sam Brown, I think, is really going to help from a run after catch standpoint because he's so explosive. Second in the state of Georgia in long jump. Basketball player flying over the rim for dunks. We had a great interview with Sam Brown. You can see on YouTube if you go back and look at the archives. Fast as well, big as well. You saw a 55-yard catch and run against Texas, a college football playoff team. I expect him to really take a lot of short passes for big chunk plays and also make big plays down the field. I think he's gonna be more of a big play guy than a Restrepo, who's going to be more of your reliable guy.
Even though Restrepo might catch 130 balls this year.
And I think Restrepo's going to make some big plays too now. I was going back and watching some stuff. And, I think with Cam Ward, you saw it in the spring game, Restrepo's going to make chunk plays too on top of the short plays. So it's going to be a nice room for sure.
Sean Sanders says, who would be the bigger grab, DJ Pickett or Elijah Griffin? Why not both?
Why not both? That's 1A and 1B. I think those positions are the ones you want to get big on in the high school ranks because they're hard to get in the portal. You're not going to find DJ Pickett's in the portal. You're not going to find Elijah Griffin's in the portal. So get him in high school, pay for him in high school. I think they're 1A. They're on the highest rank you can be on Miami's board is where those guys sit. So you can't get higher than where they're at.
Canes Cats Heat 305. D, what did you hear on Hayden Lowe and his commitment to USC? Will we still be involved?
Great question. I spoke with some folks about him yesterday. I think they were surprised that he committed to USC, but at the same time, they view it as a tenuous commitment. USC is going to have probably a setback year this year. They weren't very good last year, but they're kind of on dicey ground. Their competition's going up now in the Big Ten. Lincoln Riley, I think some of the bloom is off with him. At least as a coach, quarterbacks, obviously he's turning them into productive players, Heisman players, and first overall pick. So that hasn't changed, but the team has not been very good. Pac-12, I mentioned Cristobal's record in the Pac-12 earlier. People who thought the Pac-12 was easy. You've seen Lincoln Riley go out there and struggle. So if they have another bad year, I think Miami would be able to make a move with Hayden Lowe. They're going to keep recruiting him. They like him.
Malp the G says D Money Pistolero Pete showing love from Atlanta. And this is a more of a question for you, D, I think. Which current players on the roster could you see follow the Rock's footsteps and use their charisma and body to be a star in the WWE?
You got to start with the poly players, the Samoans. Look around professional wrestling. It is dominated right now by Samoans and Polynesians, whether Samoan, Tongan, you name it. They're dominating in the WWE and have been for a while. Of course, The Rock has Polynesian descent. So I would look at the Mawanoa brothers. They have to talk a little more, but I think they probably would with the camera. But the Mawanoa brothers, Frankie Tinalau, that's where I'd be looking at for a potential wrestler. We had Frankie Tinalau on the podcast back in the day when he was in high school. And we asked about it. He was following. He knew some of the names, and he said that was something he'd consider down the road if football didn't work out.
Listen, if Markel Bell has any sort of personality on him, he's another one. He might on looks alone there, and with his size, he might pass the test.
Yeah, he has chokeslam written all over him.
Noel 1241. Who do you guys think will be in our starting front seven that will wreak the most havoc?
I mean, pretty easy, right? Number 4, Ruben Bain, switch from number 44 to number 4 this offseason. Start there. He'll be one of the best in the country. Messidor, if healthy, you saw what he can do from a disruption standpoint. Tyler Barron is the name I'm watching because Tyler Barron, you watch Tennessee, he was great at Tennessee, but a lot of it was inside. A lot of it was 4-eye lining right in front of the tackle. Kick him out a gap and see what he can do as far as rushing off the edge and using his athleticism. I think he could have a huge, huge year for the Miami Hurricanes.
Trigger One says, I'm hearing great things about Mark Fletcher getting healthy. You guys think he's ready for game 1?
I don't want Mark Fletcher to be playing unless I'm a 150% sure that he can be Mark Fletcher. That's what we need. Foot injuries are tough. Setbacks are common. We don't need to rush Mark Fletcher back. You have Damian Martinez, who's going to be the bell cow. You have Elijah Lofton, if you need him, who's similar running style and size to Mark Fletcher when he is playing tailback. You have Chris Johnson with the explosive element. You have Jordan Lyle, who's been the talk of the offseason, who just arrived. Based on watching his senior film, seeing how big he is now that he's on campus, talking to people, I would put Jordan Lyle really where Mark Fletcher was last year. Not as big, but very big himself for his running style. Coming from a private school, didn't come in spring, which Mark Fletcher didn't either, I don't believe. So in the same place to where Fletcher was this time last year, I think he can do that, meaning Lyle can do what Fletcher did last year on the field. So put that all together. You do not need Fletcher right now. I'd love to have him. I think he's a great, great player. I think his potential's through the roof. I love the guy. I love what he brings with his size. I love his toughness. I love his IQ. I think he can do a lot, but I don't want to rush him back. Don't play him until he's absolutely 1,000,000% healthy, because you don't need him until then.
Ulysses Perez said, I was going over the Florida and Miami rosters. Miami shouldn't lose on August 31st. Agreed. I mean, look, we've had this discussion. We've done full podcasts on how the rosters definitely is lopsided in Miami's favor. I continue going back to obviously it being a home game for Florida, week 1, and I'm a bigger believer in Graham Mertz than a lot of people are. I don't think he's going to lose that game for them. Again, Miami has a much better roster, and I do think that they should be favored going into that game by a handful of points, but I'm not just jumping and saying Miami's going to go in there and blow them out week 1.
Yeah, you said it best. I mean, look, it's a tough game. It's a rivalry game. Florida has their strengths. Roster for roster, Miami is clearly the better team.
Michael Quinones, biggest area for improvement this recruiting cycle?
Defensive back, period, point blank, bolded. If first year was offensive line, second year was defensive line, defensive back this year, and receiver to a lesser extent.
Canes Cats Heat 305. What are the chances of Amari Wallace committing this weekend?
Possible. I saw him at OT7, played nickel, played safety. Good looking player. Not the biggest guy in the world, but has instincts. He's the kind of guy that goes to Louisville or, a school like that, Pitt. And then you say, wow, who's this guy? This guy's from Central, because he's a playmaker. Physical, plays the ball, can cover a little bit. I've heard Cam Kitchens comparisons. I don't think he's as big as Cam Kitchens. I think he's more of a nickel than Cam Kitchens. He covers better, not as big. So probably, you just unique player, South Florida dog. Unique player to Miami, I should say, because we haven't gotten guys like this. There have been a lot of players like that in other that go to other schools. So bring him to Miami. I think he plays an important role as a nickel safety. Good ball skills, good toughness. Speed's not the best, but he plays fast.
Javier says Jeff Hardy is the greatest wrestler of all time.
I was never a huge Jeff Hardy guy myself, but certainly inspire a legion of people who jump off roofs and through tables in their backyard. So very influential, Jeff Hardy. But I'm not the biggest Jeff Hardy guy. He's still wrestling, but worry about his health.
Noel1241 says, do you think because of our strong DN room, Bain and Messidor would be used on the interior to get the best players on the field? I think without a doubt on, pass rushing situations, this is going to be the case. And we've already seen that with both of them.
Yes. The answer is yes. Elijah Alston, Barron on the outside, Bain and Messidor inside, maybe a Bryant on the outside or even a Lightfoot on the outside. But yes, that makes a lot of sense.
30 Rack Shot, he says, is there bad blood with Mario and Butch Davis? Wonder why Butch never came back to speak to players. I can't speak on their relationship, but I don't think Butch has all that much love for Miami at this point. There were multiple opportunities for them to, which I don't know if he would have been the guy at the time, but I'm just saying he probably feels some sort of way about how he wasn't really a main factor of coaching searches.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I heard. I don't know exactly the dynamics, but that makes sense.
Canes Cats Heat 305. D, what did you hear on Jalen Matthews and his commitment to Rutgers? Was the staff and other staffs surprised?
Look, I said it on the CanesInSight message boards. Again, if you're not signed up, sign up for the CanesInSight message boards. CanesInsight.com, free 6.9 million post and counting. I should get all my plugs in now, by the way. Caneswear. I didn't talk about Caneswear. I'm wearing my Marlins shirt from Caneswear. They got Marlins, Heat, Panthers. They got all the best stuff, plus Miami Hurricanes, baseball, basketball, football, you name it. Of course, Florida Panthers winning this playoff season. They're the winner in town. They got all Panther stuff. They've always been on top of the Panther stuff. Caneswear.com or Caneswear in Davie. I'm actually heading there right now after this to get some clothes and meet a buddy for lunch. Shout out to Jim Sala. So I'll be at Caneswear today. You got to stop by. It is the best place for Miami Hurricane fans and Miami sports fans in general. Anyways, Jalen Matthews, we mentioned it. This was a mutual parting. A lot of red flags in his recruitment. A lot of people thought he's going to go to Tennessee. He doesn't go to Tennessee. He goes to Rutgers. So put 2 and 2 together. Very talented player. He should not be going to Rutgers over Tennessee and Miami. So I'll let you guys fill in the blanks.
Next one here. Canes6 said, good morning from Cabo. Met a fellow Canes fan my first day at the resort. Listen, worldwide fan base, that's for sure. Yeah,
I was in Cabo. There's like jumping stingrays and stuff. It's a cool place. I like Miami Beach, though. I don't need to go across the world to go. You got Miami Beach, but Cabo's sick. The stingrays jumping. There's good golf there, from what I understand. The food is good. Yeah, Cabo's a nice place. And we got a question here. Save the Republic.
Appreciate the support. It says, heard Josh Horton is healthy and doing well. Do you expect Horton to be a factor? Will OJ Frederick or Ryan Mack have a bigger impact this year?
Appreciate the support, and it's a very good question. Yeah, I heard Josh Horton's up to 307 pounds, healthy. Someone posted a picture of him in the workouts. Man, he looks absolutely the part. He looks like what you want at defensive tackle. He's very athletic, late blooming athletic type of kid where the size came last, which is great because the athleticism and the production was first. So excited to see what he can do. That 4th defensive tackle spot is up for grabs. Really, they're all up for grabs. It doesn't have to be the 4th. It could be the 1st, right? You could be the guy. Whether it's Horton, Ahmad Moten, I say those are 2 that are really fighting right now. Justin Scott just arrived on campus. Artavius Jones. Armando Blunt, I heard, is growing into that defensive tackle role as just a 17-year-old, a young 17-year-old. So that room is getting a lot better. Let's see who steps to the forefront. I would love it if Horton could do that. OJ Frederick and Ryan Mack. I heard OJ Frederick had a chance to play this year, which I was shocked by. Ryan Mack is someone I expected to have a role this year and can have a role this year because high IQ, high floor. Maybe his ceiling's not as high, but he's going to come in closer to that ceiling than others. Can play nickel, can run a little bit. Was really, really good at the Under Armour practices with the best players in the country. That's when he became a 4-star player because he was covering 5 stars and 4 stars and looking better than higher rated guys ahead of him. So like both those guys, glad they're on campus. They have an opportunity to give us some much needed depth in that corner room.
I'm going to go back and grab a couple questions here that we missed from our buddy West End Zone Podcast, Nick Echeverria. Go check out his YouTube page as well. I know he's doing a good high school coach summer series of interviews. He asks, how truly confident is the staff going into summer workouts? Usually coaching staffs have a good feel when they will be good.
Extremely confident, man. Extremely confident. These guys, I've never heard them talk about it. This group, right? I've never heard them talk about a team like this year's team. They expected a rough season the first year. They did not expect to lose to Middle Tennessee State, and some of the dysfunction, staff dysfunction, all that stuff, that was probably surprising. But, they didn't expect to be great the first year. Second year, they expected improvement. I think that the collapse of TVD was the thing they weren't counting on. But they knew he had some limitations even at this point of the season or the offseason. Going in, they said, there are limitations to him. He's maybe not as good as maybe the public perception, but I don't think they expected him to completely collapse like he did. So they underperformed, but they still, they weren't saying they were going to be great last year. Year 3 was always the target from a roster standpoint to be really top contenders, and they think they are going to be good. The recruiting strategy is built around not overpaying for guys now, not getting too many commitments now because you expect to be good during the season and go after the absolute filet mignon of recruits. So they're planning to be good. They're expecting to be good. The budget, Canes Connection, So you're not a member, 20% off. West End Zone is a huge supporter of Canes Connection. He puts his money where his mouth is, supporting this team and helping this roster be what it is. 20% off. Use promo code CIS. You'll have access to private Zoom chat. We'll do one next Thursday where you'll have the absolute latest and get info before anybody else. Canes Connection, Miami's official NII collective. Promo code CIS for 20% off first month. But yeah, man, I expect this to be good because of the roster. They expect to be good. They expect the ACC championship. That's their goal. And they think they have the roster and the pieces to do that legitimately on both sides of the ball.
Another question here from Kane6. What does Dawson and Mario need to do to ensure our tight ends produce with Cam Ward? I'm not sure they need to do anything other than just let it happen naturally. There's been so much discussion, D, about this position this offseason, and we've talked about it multiple times. Just look at who was on the roster. Elijah Arroyo was not fully healthy. Riley Williams was a freshman, right? And had his moments, but also had some, maturing as a player to do. And I think we'll see that this season. And then Cam McCormick is a blocking tight end. He's not someone that you're going to, really use in the vertical passing game or the passing game in general. So they didn't have their best guy in Arroyo was hurt last year. McCormick is not that type of guy, can be a contributor on this team for sure. And was last year. And then Riley Williams just wasn't ready yet. So I think naturally it's just going to happen.
Yep. And spring, they look great. Pete said it best. Arroyo, if he was healthy, you wouldn't have seen so much Cam McCormick. If Riley Williams was a year older last year, you wouldn't have seen so much Cam McCormick. It was a product of those two things. Should we have thrown it to the tight end more? I'm sure they're looking at everything as to things they can control as to why we didn't do a better job last year. But certainly I think personnel is big to do with it. And in spring, you saw Arroyo get the ball a lot. You saw Riley Williams get the ball a lot. You saw Elijah Lofton get the ball a lot. I think that's more indicative of what you're going to see with the 24 offense.
A few more questions here before we wrap things up. Again, over 1,000 people watching live right now on YouTube and Twitter. Appreciate everyone for their support. Remember to like this video. If you're not watching on YouTube right now, if you're on Twitter, go over to our YouTube page. Like the video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Really helps us out. Jordan Livingston here with a question. Is Ray Joseph the next guy up if Restrepo goes down? If so, can he command a similar volume?
Great question. If that might be by committee, we'll see. I think people will practice in the slot that are penciled in outside as well right now. So we'll see who steps up. Joseph is one. I don't think Joseph would command the same volume as Restrepo because I don't think Joseph is the same caliber of receiver as Restrepo right now. Restrepo was a running back who developed into a receiver, just like Joseph. High academic, just like Joseph. So there's a lot of similarities there. I think Restrepo is just further along in the development. Joseph's still getting there. So Joseph would obviously get a much bigger opportunity if Restrepo went down. God forbid. That'd be terrible for our team and for him. But I think he still there's still steps in this development as a receiver before he gets to that where he just steps in and is getting, Restrepo got 17 targets in the bowl game, which to me, Restrepo is a polarizing topic. There's a lot of debates on the message board, CanesInsight.com about Restrepo, group chats. Everybody's always has an opinion on Restrepo. The thing I heard from everybody was, not from everybody, from certain segments, people were saying, oh, Restrepo only gets targets because of TVD. TVD's force feeding the ball. Then TVD goes to the portal. Jakari Brown steps in and he gets 17 targets in the bowl game. 17. Jakari Brown leaves. Cam Ward steps in spring. Or should I say, he hadn't left yet, but Jakari Brown steps to the back. Cam Ward steps up in spring. You saw the spring game. Did Restrepo go to the background there, or was he catching touchdowns left and right? So then that was the same way all of spring. So Restrepo is a different caliber of guy. I think Ray Joseph maybe could be that down the road, but he still has some development to go.
DZ Din says, will we have 2 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard running back?
I think no, because I think it's going to be more spread out. But I think
Restrepo gets 1,000, and then after that, I think it'll be pretty spread out. Yeah, 700, 800, 900 yards for 2 to 3 guys. I don't know. That's
right, and maybe Martinez could. He's certainly capable of it. He did it last year as a 19-year-old, so he could get you 1,000 at an efficient clip. But I'd want to use him for big chunk plays and not overwork him if these other guys, I think it's a deeper room than people think. Even though spring, it didn't look like it. When you add in an AJ Allen, you add in a Jordan Lyle, certainly add in a Damian Martinez, I think you get a much better depth chart than you thought at some points in spring. he could be 1,000-yard back. I'd love him to be kind of like the Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. Keep them explosive and efficient. I think Nick Chubb did get over 1,000 yards, well over 1,000 yards, but share the load with Damian Martinez. Don't force feed him the ball in a way that's going to hurt him in the playoffs and the ACC down the stretch. You want him down the stretch to be playing his best.
You were getting tips on WWE or not? Or
we got to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
See how you know.
Deal919 says, has Cody's title run been a disappointment?
I'm glad you asked this question. I have always been a believer that Roman Reigns didn't get enough credit for what he was doing while he was the champ. I know people praised him, but they didn't realize how much he was making people. Cody is the ultimate babyface. He's better as the challenger. How many long title runs did his dad have, even in the NWA? Those guys are good as the challenger, climbing the mountain, overcoming adversity. They're not necessarily the champ. He's been what I expected as a champ. He's doing everything he can. He's had great matches, but he's better as the underdog. I would love for someone to come and take the title from him and put him back in that chase role. And then when Roman Reigns comes back, we all know he's going to take the title and come back to the head of the table and continue to reign.
Look, A-Rob says, yes, Cody sucks.
I don't think Cody sucks. I think Cody's great. It's a role thing. He's great as the chaser.
He says, give me AJ.
Listen, they're going to have a great match. They had a great match last time. But look, Miami right now is in the chase role. Miami right now in the chase role is where you want to be. Not being disrespected, a lot to prove, trying to get to that ACC championship level. I like Miami in that role as the party chasing the prize. We saw what happened when they were champion. They got fat off the land. Coker, things slipped, and they weren't as good. I like our role right now where we're trying to build, and we're being very hungry.
Brandon said, since Pearsall went round one, that means X should as well, the better receiver. That's not how it works, unfortunately, in the scouting world. And I think X has a chance to be a solid pro. But listen, there's a reason he came back to school off of a productive year once again, right? So he still has something to show. And I think right now slated to be a late round pick, 5th to 7th rounder. But I'm not going to doubt anything about that guy because we've seen him continue to get better, and we know the season we expect him to have. So I just think there's some limitations, physically, speed wise, I should say.
Yeah, I think,
and positionally too. I had a scout last year, D, and I think I told you this during the season, who told me his best projection might be as a running back. So, different teams will see him different ways, but
yeah, I had Pearsall longer, faster. I don't see that as a comparison, aside from the fact that, their skin color, they're different players. Restrepo, like you said, more of that running back build. He's probably going to run a 4.6. Pearsall's running in the 4.3s, right? 4.4s. He was pretty fast. Restrepo not as long, but Restrepo was a very good receiver, very good contesting catch receiver for how small he is, short he is. He's a unique player. He's got some Deebo Samuel, like you said, as being a running back. He's not as dynamic as Deebo. I'm not saying that. The combination of the running back body with the ability to separate and catch as a very skilled wide receiver, the ability to be instinctual and quarterback friendly, I think is going to help. The biggest problem with Restrepo in the NFL, in my opinion, is that he doesn't return punts. If Restrepo could return punts, I would say no problem. He's going to go high, not high like first round high, but like 5th round and above, I think. But without the punt return, I could see him slipping a lot because that's a whole nother position on the roster that he's not filling, despite other guys who do similar things to Restrepo also being very good punt returners. So I think that's the thing he's fighting: the height, the speed, plus the lack of punt return. But for Miami's purposes, I think he's unbelievable receiver. I think he's one of the best offensive players we have. I think he's one of the best players we have. I think he's one of the best receivers in the country. I think he's underrated as a Hurricane. And that whole talk about TVD force feeding him is one of the biggest lies that has ever been told in Canes football fandom. It's complete
I don't know
BS.
how people were hoping he would leave, to quote unquote free up targets for other guys. I mean, I don't know where they've made some nice additions, but he's still going to be the go-to guy. One
of the dumbest pieces of discourse in Canes history was all that. It was so stupid. A lot of it was from, people that wanted, they were inside and wanted more targets, and they were spreading junk because they wanted the ball more. Right. So look, I get it. People want the ball more. So they're going to say, oh, TVD's throwing it to his roommate. total BS, and that was put to bed completely when Jakari Brown, who is not Xavier Restrepo's roommate, who is just a young quarterback trying to get by and score touchdowns, throws it to him 17 times, 17 in one game. So, I mean, what else can you say? Cam Ward, we saw it all spring. Cam Ward and Restrepo are going to be peas in a pod, even more so than TVD and Restrepo, because Cam Ward's game fits better with Restrepo. His ability to get out the pocket, extend plays. When he's extending plays, who do you think is going to get open? I mean, who is the ultimate quarterback-friendly guy is Restrepo. The ability to find holes in zones, the ability to separate with his strength and quickness, the ability to be on the same page as the QB when the QB improvises. I think Cam Ward and Restrepo are going to make beautiful music. Hopefully he stays healthy. If he does, he's going to have a monster year. But draft-wise, punt return is going to be his problem.
We'll wrap it up with this. We got some. Listen, Wes Sutton doesn't like the fake garbage wrestling talk, man. So I don't know. Maybe we do have to have something on the side here, D, where we're talking. Not me, but you. I'm
just answering the questions that are being asked by the CanesInSight community. I'll tell you, who's a huge wrestling fan is Coach Cristobal. He could talk about Florida championship wrestling from Florida, Gordon Soley, and that whole crew. Dusty Rhodes, the father of Cody Rhodes. He can list out names in 2 seconds. I've heard it with my own ears at a private event. He was listing out names, boom, 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 like he was 10 again. So yeah, I apologize. I'm just answering the questions that are asked.
We'll wrap it up with this, D, as we're over an hour here. Again, thank you to everyone who's been on here. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Canes Cats Heat 305 says, Pete and D, have you also been able to confirm the baseball signees have made it to campus yet, or when do they report to school?
I'll find out on that. I know we're doing the baseball pod today. I'll see if we can find out before then. If not, we'll do our best efforts to get to that question. But if you aren't listening to the baseball pod with Javi Salas, Mr. Perfect, the man who threw a perfect game for the University of Miami, played with the Brewers for several years in their organization. Now a successful businessman, but still a passionate Canes fan and a great contributor. Check out that podcast. He also has his own podcast, Bullpen Mafia, which is great. They've had a few clips go viral. I see the former Marlins players liking and posting some of his stuff that he's done. He had Glenn Geffner on the other day. A great show also. But we can get another question here. We don't have to stop right there. Let's keep it rolling.
And any planned CIS tailgates this fall? Yes, we will be doing those, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned on that.
Score prediction at UF?
I've probably given this before, and it's going to be totally different when I give it now, so it just depends on my mood. I could see a 10-point game. I see a close game that Miami separates late.
I think that's just about it, D.
All right, everybody. 1,000. We got 1,100 on right now.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Like and subscribe to the pod. If you're not signed up to CanesInsight.com, it's free. That is the best source for quick juice. It'll get you through your workday. It is constantly refreshing, constant debate, constant news. Anything happens in the Canes world, if someone sneezes, it is on there in 2 seconds. It is more up to date than even Twitter, certainly more in depth than Twitter with the media and everything else. You can post videos. It is the absolute best. It's addictive. It is heroin for Canes fans. Probably ruined a lot of relationships, but nurtured a lot of Cane fandom. So go to CanesInsight.com for free. Sign up, pick a screen name, get involved in the conversation, or just lurk. You don't have to. You could just read and have fun and get through your workday.
Port Knox actually asked a couple times if Emory Williams was fully healthy. I mean, I would assume so. He was participating in spring, so
yes, yeah, he is. He's fully healthy. It was a non-throwing injury. He participated really throughout the spring totally. I mean, without very many limitations. I think he was a little rusty at first and picked up as he went on, but it was his non-throwing wrist that got hurt against FSU.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your support. Remember, we are every day on our Canes Insight Daily Show, posting videos on YouTube. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Appreciate everyone's support. Go Canes.
Go Canes.